So you want to move into a product leader position. You want to be a director of product management, or you want to be a VP of product, or you want to be a CPO. Let's go in this video through what are the key things that you are going to have to do in order to be part of that process, not even to get that position. Let's go through them. So let's start from the basics. There's two ways, obviously, to start as a product leader. One of them is that if you are already a product leader and you are kind of moving horizontally to another company where you're going to continue being some kind of product leader, either VP, director, CPO, these titles can mean a lot of things, so don't take them as they mean something exactly. A CPO in a small company might be the same as a director in a big company, or a director in a small company might maybe not even be a director in other companies, in a bigger company. So it's a very different world. The responsibilities, of course, are quite different depending on the company you are in, the size, and the ways of working of the company. That's just for starters. The other way to enter into a product leader position, if you are already some product manager you are already pretty senior and you are considering to get into that first role. So I just want to be blunt. Realistically, it's always hard to get a role when you are coming from a senior product manager position, because most of the companies are going to require somebody that has experience being a product leader. Most of the cases, the best way to get into a product leader position is if you are growing organically within the organization, because then the organization knows better your capabilities and is probably much more willing to put the trust on you as a product leader than a company that really doesn't know you is not going to be able usually to put that trust on you. And then there's the other thing that realistically, most of us, there's going to be some famous product people or people that have very valuable experiences of working in one of the most common product companies out there. So some director in Google most likely is going to have better chances than some director in a maybe not very well-known company. That's just the reality of the game of trying to find new jobs. There's also minuses, but let's not go in there. But the reality is that getting into that product leader position is not going to be that easy. It's not going to be that straightforward, especially if you don't tick usually a lot of boxes. But let's see how can we help you once you have ticked those boxes. How can you express that availability or that capability that you have to be able to do the job that the company will need you to do? The first thing, finding a job is not as easy as just throwing CVs or resumes all around the place and hope that you are going to land a job. Sometimes some people think that working in tech is like that. You just send CVs or your resume and everybody will just come calling you, or you don't even have to send it and people will come calling you. It can happen. The odds are really, really low. So you don't want to be trusting on very low odds. And yes, for people that have a lot of experience, that have worked in maybe famous companies, I don't know, there are somebody relatively famous within the realm of product management, it might be easier to get that position. That's just true. But for most of us, we will have to put the work. So what means to put the work? For me, the first thing that you have to do when you want to apply, let's not even talk about going to an interview, which is going to help you, by the way. But the first thing that you have to do is that you have to research the company. I will do a video on how to actually research a company later on, but I just touch on a couple of the main things that you will have to understand. So first of all, you have to go and understand the company. The company is going to express to a certain degree in their website what is the problem that they're trying to solve, what is the solution, most likely who are the customers that they have. The next one might be a little bit more difficult to find. Some companies, it depends on the company, will explain their strategy very clearly. But most of the companies will tell you about certain aspects of the business, and they will insist on those aspects of the business several times. That means that for them is a strategic goal. You have to understand this. So when you go to a website, I'm trying to think about an example here. But if you go, for example, let's say Tesla always talks about their main products. Obviously, that's part of the strategy, obviously, to sell the existing products. But you can see that they also have pages for things like the Optimus. Is it called Optimus? It's probably not Optimus Prime. That would be kind of hilarious. The Optimus robot, and they are talking about the solar, and they're probably talking about other upcoming projects in the future. So they're talking about things that they're not monetizing now, even, okay, solar, they're monetizing, different story, and energy. But with that Optimus at this point, as far as I know, they are not monetizing. They still talk about it. That means that this is something that is strategic for them, that this is something that they see in the future as a very big bet, a very big opportunity for them as a business. If you see that, this is something that you can explain and take into account in how you are going to tell your story. This is why it's very important that you do your research. Part of the research is also understanding the competition. Try to see who are the potential competitors to this company. And also, which countries are they stronger? Try to compare them to see how they compare to other competitors. I'll try to tell you in a more in-depth video how to actually go and do an analysis of a company. But if you do all these things, this is going to put you in a mindset of understanding. I'm not going to say really well because you don't understand anything really about the company, but you will understand better the company. What are their goals and what they are going after? And this is very important because when you start framing your CV, when you start, or resume, sorry, I guess that depends on which part of the world you are, you might call it one thing or another. Or if when you are writing your cover letter, you can take parts of this as part of the story that you are telling them, that you understand, hey, I see that you are working in this area, that you are putting a lot of emphasis here. But I also understand or have noticed that maybe you are very strong in when you are doing, I don't know, let's put an example. And again, I don't know, you're creating a product A for a specific area. And you can see that this product is only being distributed in a certain country, but not in other countries. So you can ask also that, are there strategies to expand to other countries? Are there reasons to be in that country? And how is your growth strategy or expansion strategy for this product in the future? Also, you have to understand the product portfolio. Of course, if there are several products that you will be driving, that you will be the director for, you have to understand those ones. And you have to understand the offering. You have to also understand that are these products complementing each other? Most of the products, in a way, they are going to solve some kind of a workflow for the users. Just think about Atlassian. Atlassian started with Jira, which was just basically creating some kind of Kanban board, of course, supporting Scrum and supporting agile processes for development teams. But later on, they started to see what are the upper or downstream or upstream parts of the workflow that developers need to do, or development teams or product teams need to do. And they started to add more things. So they have things like Bitbucket, they have things like Confluence, and they have other products to do like road mapping and so on. So basically they started with one small part of the workflow, but little by little, they're adding up. So try to identify also what workflow that customer base is having. And once you understand that customer base better, you can ask questions about, okay, maybe you have gaps in this part of the workflow. Do you have plans to actually fulfill them in the future? This way, you can start a conversation. And why is this important, you ask me? It's like, why do you have to do this before the interview? Well, this is important. It's like just a CV and a cover letter. If you had not done a research, it's going to be very generic. And you are not going to be able to address the problems that the company have. If you are able to already in the cover letter have done that pre-work, you are probably going to be in a much better position to actually go through those first interviews because you have done the work. You are showing that you are trying to understand the business of the company, that you are trying to understand what customers they have, how they make money, could they be in the future. These are very important things that you are going to be able to somehow also tell within your story. And you don't have, within your resume or within your cover letter. And you can have like a template for a resume, which is kind of normal because you have your experience. That's normal. But you might want to tailor it and highlight parts of the resume that are more relevant to this company, and maybe other parts of the resume you don't want to talk so much. For example, I have been a software engineer in the past. I had done, well, I wouldn't say a lot of things, but I had done maybe 10 years of software engineer, a little bit more even. But the reality is that nowadays in my resume, I just have a couple of jobs with me being a software engineer in the past. I don't tell anything else because that is not relevant for the company. The company is not hiring me for my software engineering skills. So, and well, they are a little bit rusty anyway, so probably that's not what they want. So you want to understand which parts you want to highlight more, which ones you want to highlight less. So if the company is very focused on getting somebody to drive product growth and drive go-to-market, you have to focus on explaining those parts of your experience there. And then when you go to the cover letter, so for me, the resume is a little bit like the past. This is my experience. This is what I've done. The cover letter, you want to go a little bit more in a mode of, this is how I could help you doing something. You can be blunt. I don't like to be too blunt, like I'm going to help you do this and I'm going to help you grow and blah, blah, blah. I want to just explain more that this is the experience I have and how I think it could apply to what you're trying to achieve in the company. Some people like to have it from the point of view that I'm going to, make you the best company in the world. Most of us are not going to make all the companies the best companies in the world. Of course, we're going to help. I'm maybe a little too humble to tell things that way. Anyways, people have different styles. Have your style, own it. Just make sure that it's something that people on the other side can relate to. The other thing that you want to do is, especially once you have gone through that first process, that you have sent your application, maybe you have gotten an invitation to the first interview. Go through your research. Check out everything again. It's very easy that these processes are long. You might have done your research maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, and you might have forgotten some parts. So make sure that you document your research, you go through those notes, and you write your questions. And your questions you can have a mix of questions, okay? You can have practical questions. It's good to have those ones because it also shows that you care. You care about, I don't know, what could be like the regular timetables, when do I have to work, do I have to work from the office or not, who is part of the team, who will be reporting to you. Those are very practical questions that are important. Understanding your team, understanding the relationships between the stakeholders, all those are great. But you want to also make a difference with others. And this is something that I've seen that many people don't do necessarily. It's like, okay, I have done my study, I have done my research on this company. So I understand that, hey, when I was looking at this workflow, there were parts of the workflow that were not covered. So let's say that, I don't know, whatever in Atlassian they're offering. And I think that, hey, they could have something for certain types of software teams that would need that kind of new product for them. Or there's a hole there that there's a ton of other products and maybe they don't go there. You can ask that. This is great if you are asking these questions. They might have good reasons not to go there. And usually they are going to tell you. And unless they are super obvious, it might be that they are never going to do certain type of products because maybe they already even said it in the past, especially in the website. If it's very clearly stated, you shouldn't be asking those questions. If you haven't found the information, just ask it. And then also ask things like, well, when I see you comparing to other competitors, I see that you are very strong in these countries, but in these other countries, you might not be that strong. It's like, do you have any strategies to actually be able to grow in those markets, to be able to get known in those markets? Maybe that's just a problem of discovery. You have to be able to ask these questions to understand what are the problems. And you have to have a list of these questions that you are going to potentially ask. In most of the interviews, there's rarely time to do a ton of questions. So pick up the ones that you consider that are the most important and more relevant, and that they're going to show both your experience and also they're going to potentially open their eyes that, hey, this person is actually doing the job. This person is actually very interested in what we are trying to do. That is already showing commitment, even if you have not joined the company. Another thing that I would recommend if you go into this kind of process is that prepare yourself to go through a relatively long recruitment process. Many times these processes are actually pretty long, even going over 1-2 months. So be ready for that kind of thing. Sometimes they will tell you, sometimes they will not tell you, and it's going to be a surprise. So just be ready for that, because you might have to be doing interviews with different people, different stakeholders. In most of the cases, I think that you might be doing, and I think that this happens for any position, not just for product leader positions, you will talk with people that are either going to be working above you or people that are going to be working in the same hierarchy as you, but you rarely are going to be interviewing or talking with the people that belong to your team, which I think it is a pity, because in reality, most of the time that you're going to be working with people that are part of your team, not that they report to you, basically. And I think that that's a missed opportunity from many companies. If you get that chance, that's great, because it will help you understand the culture of the team, help you understand how they work. And again, prepare your questions. It probably is going to be very difficult to research how the team works. You might research how the company works through different portals like Glassdoor and so on, but those, of course, are biased by the people that are putting the reviews, which is normal. We are all biased whenever we do a review. But there's going to be usually some kind of truth about the company in there. And that's what you have to try to figure out. It's going to be hard, by the way. But you can start understanding how they work, what are the dynamics between the team members, between the team members and other teams, because especially if you're working with product teams, those product people are going to work with engineering, with marketing, sales, so on. So it's good that you are able to do a little bit of a mind map of this. So these are some of the things that I think that are the most important, just to be part of that process of recruitment for a product leader position. The reality is that getting into this type of recruitment is going to be hard for a starter to even get in. It's going to be hard to go through, because there's going to be usually quite competent people. Maybe not in some cases, but in most of the cases there's going to be. Of course, you want to choose those positions where you tick the most boxes, where you have the real beneficial background to drive this, where you have the experience. Maybe it's in the same industry that you have worked with the same type of customers. That's going to give you a great advantage compared to others that have work and come from other industries, say that you work in some B2B, like finance industry, products for finance industry, and somebody that comes from direct to consumer products. They are going to have a much harder time to get into that kind of interviews. So try to analyze a little bit where you are at, where your experience is, and how you are going to be able to provide with your experience for that company. And honestly, at least from my point of view, I would never go for anything where I tick most of the boxes, because, well, that's just me. I don't want to be in interviews that I have very little to no chances. The other thing that I would say is that once you are in, do the work, do the research. I seriously think that if you do that work, if you do that research, if you show what you know, that's going to tell a lot the people in the company about your culture, about your principles, about your way of working. And that's going to make them probably more likely to take you into account, compared to another person that it's just like, yeah, I came here, sounds interesting, and I can tell you about my story. And if my experience is great for you, you can contact me. That is going to be the attitude of, I would say, a very high amount of, or high percentage of the people that are running to the interviews, because most of the people don't do a ton of work to think about how they can contribute. They don't do a ton of work to think about understand the business of the company. If you do that work, that's going to put you already ahead of others, or ahead of many of others. It's easy to say, but I would recommend you not to be very frustrated if this doesn't go through, especially if you're already in another position. Well, you don't have much to lose from that point of view, that you already have a hopefully stable job, especially if you're already a director. If you, of course, want to jump into that from a senior product manager, a principal product manager into a product leader, that's going to be a little bit difficult or more, first of all, difficult to get it, but also maybe more frustrating because it's going to take probably a lot of time to get there. Because you don't have usually the experience to prove that you have done that job. Companies are going to care that if you have managed people, if you even have fired people, how do you manage your team? What is your style? And so on. If they cannot understand that, it's going to be difficult for them to understand that when you have not done it, because you might not know it yourself. So if you're looking for a product leader position or some kind of leadership position for that matter in tech companies, I think that these are tips that will help you no matter what, especially if you are for product, because, well, that's the area that I know. But if you are also looking for like a CTO or some kind of development manager, these things, or development director, these things are going to help you anyhow, because they are relatively generic for what is needed to get into those leadership positions within a company. So how about you? Are you trying to get into a product leadership position? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know in which stage you are. Are you already some kind of product leader, or are you somebody who is aspiring to be a product leader? I will bet there's going to be more people that are aspiring than necessarily people that are already product leaders out there, because, well, numbers. There's usually more people that are already aspiring for those ones that already are in the product leadership position. I will see you in the next one, and remember, stay safe.